Welcome back to Thinking Cap. It's Benji here, back with another episode of Best FPL Captain, your go-to source for premium captaincy picks. Last game week, we hit the jackpot with Bukayo Saka's explosive performance, netting us a juicy double-digit haul. Our best captain picks have been on fire this season. We've racked up a whopping 172 points so far. Let's see if we can keep it up in game week 8. Thinking Cap activated. As you all know, we kick off each video with a quick recap of how my rankings performed last game week, and I'm delighted to say they're actually quite successful. I was only a little hair away from a perfect ranking order if it wasn't for Salah's clean sheet point. He ended up on 3, Haaland only managed 2, so technically it wasn't spot on, but the key decision to place Saka ahead of both players was a game changer, and we absolutely nailed that one. Palmer did shine once again in the wildcard spot. A big shout out to those who did opt for him as their Game Week 7 captain. On to the Game Week 8 shortlist now, and this week we've actually got a fresh face joining our usual suspects. Phil Foden makes his debut on the shortlist alongside prolific teammate Erling Haaland. Our regular powerhouses of Bukayo Saka and Mo Salah are also included. The City Boys will travel to Wolverhampton this weekend. Salah's got a home fixture against his former club Chelsea, and the only Saturday cap option is Saka. He faces AFC Bournemouth away from home at 5:30 p.m. UK. Before we dive into the player potential, let's take a moment to consider the crucial factors of rest and recovery. All 4 players went on international duty during the break, but only Haaland started both games for his country. He played the full 90 minutes against Slovenia and Switzerland, which means he'll have just 7 days to recover ahead of the Wolves fixture, the least amount of recovery time among the group. Phil Foden started the first England match, but barely featured in the second. He did travel to Finland and was on the pitch for 10 minutes, giving him a solid 10 days of rest, which is actually the most out of the 4. Surprisingly, it's Mo who may have had the highest quality rest. He played a full match for Egypt in their first game, but he wasn't in the squad for the second, giving him 9 days to recover for that Chelsea game. It's likely that he did fly back to England to prepare for Liverpool's upcoming fixtures. Finally, we do have Bukayo Saka, who started against Greece, but was subbed off in the 51st minute due to an apparent hamstring injury. England's coach mentioned post-match that Saka should be fine, that it was just precautionary. He's the only player who didn't actually travel out of England ahead of his Game Week 8 fixture, and I do expect him to be fit. If it was just a little bit of tightness, those extra 9 days of rest and recovery will be extremely beneficial. But overall, I do think all 4 premiums have plenty of recovery time before their next Game Week 8 match. However, in terms of rest quality, I think Salah and Saka are actually at the top. Both of them did miss out on the second international game, and Saka, he was in England throughout this whole international break. Haaland definitely does have the lowest quality of recovery with just 7 days, but that still should be enough for him to perform well. Moving into the predicted minutes, Saka actually leads the pack. Having stayed in England during the international break, I think he's primed for a full 90-minute performance. Remember that with Arteta, it's all or nothing for Saka. He either starts or doesn't feature at all, so if you are backing him with the captain's armband this week, make sure you've got a solid vice-captain option. Haaland is not actually that far behind with a projected minutes of 88 against Wolves. Pep rarely subs him in away games, but keep an eye out. We might start to see his minutes trimmed soon. Salah's recent 72nd minute sub against Crystal Palace hints at future rotation. Expect around 85 minutes against Chelsea. If Liverpool are cruising though, don't be surprised if Mo is pulled off earlier. Foden's got the worst X minutes with only 83 projected. KDB's potential return could actually boost Phil's playtime, as Foden might not be first in line for substitution. The good news is all 4 options are set for significant minutes in Game Week 8, but in the world of FPL, every minute counts. Before we analyze the defensive data, let's conduct a quick risk assessment. The lowest risk choice is Erling Haaland, boasting a total ownership of 73.3%. I expect the majority of FPL managers to actually captain him against Wolves, and our weekly Twitter poll shows that he will be backed by an overwhelming majority with a risk factor of just 25%. Capping Haaland means you'll be joining millions of other managers, which is why his gain potential is limited to around 60%. Next up is Salah, who comes in as the next safest bet, but his risk factor is significantly higher than Haaland's. Given his ownership, I anticipate that Salah will be the second most capped player in Gameweek 8. While there's not much safety with Salah cap, just because of how many people will be on Haaland, his game potential is incredibly high at 82%. This does take into account Cucurella's suspension and how easily Mo can rack up double-digit hauls with this new bonus system. Now let's talk about Phil Foden and Bukayo Saka. Both are considerably higher risk captains than the other two this weekend. Foden carries a little bit more risk than Saka, and that's just down to his lower overall ownership and his lack of recent returns. But he does offer the highest game potential out of all four at an impressive 97%. Remember, Foden delivered 8 double-digit hauls last season, including 2 20-point hat-tricks. He is an explosive points machine who could thrive against Wolves, so that's why his game potential is so big. Finally, we have Bukayo Saka, and despite his recent 16-point haul, I still consider him a pretty high-risk captain. While Southampton was a prime fixture, Bournemouth away presents more challenges. Last game week, he was captained by 448,000 managers. I don't expect those numbers to be even close to that this time around, especially with the injury concerns factored in. Despite his high risk, Saka offers plenty of potential for gains this week. He's in good form and is enjoying his best ever start to a Premier League campaign. Let's take a look at this week's defensive data, starting with Wolves, who stand out as the most vulnerable defense. Their 14 XGC, expected goals conceded, is the 17th highest in the league, and it tops our list. Bournemouth follow that with 9.21 XGC, while Chelsea has conceded the least with 7.88 XGC. That actually ranks 6th lowest in the league so far. In terms of actual goals conceded, Wolves have led in 21, Bournemouth 10, and Chelsea only 8. It's also worth noting that Bournemouth and Chelsea are closely matching their XGC totals. Interestingly, Bournemouth have shown quite good resilience in defending set pieces with only 1.3 XGC from dead ball situations. Now, this could be a concern if you are considering Saka as your captain this week, just because it does lower his potential routes to points. Overall, though, Wolves are definitely the most appealing fixture this weekend. They've conceded the most shots inside the box, the most shots on target, and the highest open play XGC in the league. This certainly gives Haaland and Foden an edge in our final comparisons. Chelsea might actually be the next best fixture. They've been solid in their left defensive zone, ranking 4th for the fewest chances conceded down the left. However, Cucurella's suspension due to accumulated bookings means Renato Vega will face a baptism of fire at Anfield against Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold. I expect Chelsea's vulnerability down that left flank to increase significantly this weekend. From a matchups perspective, Chelsea emerges as the second best fixture despite their overall defensive solidity. This is definite good news for those considering Salah as their captain. Next, we're diving into the historical fixture trends for our Gameweek 8 captaincy contenders. These insights give us a glimpse of how our premium options have performed against their upcoming opponents in the past. Mo Salah leads the pack with the largest sample size of games played. He's started 6 times against Chelsea at home and produced 4 goal involvements total, but it's worth noting that he's blanked in half of those home starts. While Chelsea might not be his most favored fixture, Salah is the only premium on our list to have historically returned a double-digit haul in this matchup. Bukayo Saka has a smaller sample size of 3 starts against Bournemouth away, blanking in 2 of them. His 0.33 goal involvements per start is the lowest return rate among our options. However, don't dismiss him yet. Saka found the net both home and away against Bournemouth last season, which bodes well for his Gameweek 8 prospects. Phil Foden has netted twice in 4 starts against Wolves away. While he's yet to hit double digits against them, Foden boasts the second best average points per start, suggesting he's been picking up those valuable bonus points when he did score those 2 goals. Erling Haaland seems to have Wolves' number with a staggering 8 goals in 4 appearances. However, 7 of those goals came at home, and he's yet to record a double-digit haul away at Wolves. In fact, he blanked in this exact fixture last season. Welcome to my kickoff data comparison. Today we'll explore 2 important categories, kickoff day and kickoff time. This data will help us make informed captaincy decisions by uncovering player preferences, biases, and much, much more. First up is Phil Foden. Is it Phil Foden or is it Fraud Foden? Unfortunately, he has the worst data set out of all 4 players, sitting dead last in both average points per start and form over the last 5 games. It seems that this really just isn't one of Foden's preferred fixture days, as he's only produced 9 goal involvements from 16 starts in Sunday away matches. He also has the lowest double-digit hole rate, with only 13% of his starts resulting in 10 or more points. This tells us 2 things. Number 1, his chances for explosivity are much lower than in other kickoff times and kickoff days, and 2, he remains a very high risk captain choice against Wolves. Moving on to Bukayo Saka, his data set isn't much better. His blank rate is only 3% lower than Foden's, and it still hovers above 50%. His return ratio is actually worse than Foden's at 0.5. However, the positive aspect of Saka's game day stats is his recent form, averaging 7 points over the last 5 games and boasting 2 double-digit holes. This could indicate a boost in Saka's preference for Saturday away starts, making me a little bit more confident in a Saka Game Week 8 cap. Now let's discuss Mo Salah, who has the most impressive set of game day stats. He boasts the strongest double-digit hole rate at 29% and the lowest blank rate at 24%. If you look at Salah's consistency from his last 5 Sunday home starts, you'll see he's only blanked once. His form indicates reliability, 7.6 form in the last 5 games on Sunday at home. While this isn't a clear indication of explosive points, combine that with his low blank percentage, and Salah does start to look pretty nailed for at least 1 attacking return against Chelsea. Finally, we arrive at Erling Haaland. Unsurprisingly, he has the best stats across the board. He leads in most categories for the game day comparison, first place for average points, best return rate, and his form suggests dangerous explosive potential for his upcoming match. Let's move into the kickoff time comparison now. Just a disclaimer, Haaland and Foden haven't played many matches at this time, 2 p.m. away from home, so keep that in mind as we do analyze the data. Starting with the City boys, Haaland's record is quite impressive. In 3 starts, he's registered 3 goals and no blanks, which is already a very good sign of consistency. While he hasn't hit double-digit holes yet, we've seen Haaland explode in kickoff times where he'd been consistent in before. So with only 3 starts in this category, the Wolves game could definitely be the big one. Foden's data set is much less promising. His 0.5 goal involvements per start is the worst return rate in this category by some distance. However, he's only started twice in 2 p.m. away games, so there's not really much we can definitely conclude from this yet. Salah again has an appealing set of data. He started the most games, and his 0.96 goal involvements is close to 1 return per game. His form is absolutely insane at 9.2, although that is a little bit inflated by a 21 pointer he got 2 or 3 or 4 seasons ago. He boasts the best hole rate, hitting double-digit scores in 22% of home starts, and in his last 5, he's only blanked once. These are clear signs of a positive bias towards the kickoff time, definitely boosting Mo's chances heading into the game week 8 captain rankings. Lastly, let's look at Saka. Again, we see a very high blank rate, similar to his game day stats actually. His form is the concerning part for me though, only 4.44, which is the 3rd worst. And remember, Foden has barely kicked a ball in this category. There are no signs of explosivity or consistent returns, which makes Bukayo a more unreliable choice for captaincy in game week 8. This kickoff time analysis gives us valuable insights into each player's performance patterns, which will be crucial as we move into our captaincy rankings for Game Week 8. Now, before we get into my Game Week 8 captain rankings, you need to know that these rankings could change. Captaincy means we need to access and process the maximum amount of information so that we can make the best, most informed decision every week. If there is new information, which does change my captaincy rankings, now that could be based on leaks, injuries, or press conference news. If new info does come out, I will be posting the updated version on all social platforms before the final deadline, so make sure you're following at least one. If you don't hear anything, then obviously nothing has changed. Links to all of my socials are in the video description below, and now let's not waste a single second. In 3rd place, it is Bukayo Saka. My biggest concern with Saka captain is actually Bournemouth coach Iraola. I remember Maresca saying after Chelsea played them that Iraola had actually instructed a tactical double up on Cole Palmer in that game, and I suspect Iraola to do the exact same against Saka. Saka will likely be occupied by two players for the majority of that match, and the fact that there's even a possibility for that to happen is a worry for captaincy. It's a definite red flag. Bournemouth are also a pretty solid team defensively, which we learned from the defensive data segment. All of these factors have lowered my personal points ceiling for Saka, and with the added injury doubts, if he is struggling with a hammy issue, then I'm not too confident on his chances to outscore some of the other boys in Game Week 8. In the wildcard spot, which is for managers who have a risk appetite of around 8 out of 10 or higher, with 6 being the average, if you're really chasing gains, trying to engage and take on more risk to have those big rank jumps, then I would recommend Foden captain this game week. We haven't seen him perform in the Premier League just yet, and with his kickoff data being so poor, it's just not good enough for me to give him a spot in the top 3 this game week. But Foden by nature is an extremely explosive player, and given where his ownership is right now, I really do think he is your best chance for huge rank gain this weekend. Based on the matchup alone, I think Foden is likely and really highly likely to pick up a return in Game Week 8, but there's just too many red flags to warrant a second spot or a first spot for Game Week 8 in the rankings. If you are in a situation where you don't own Haaland or Salah, I would just captain Foden over a Saka or a Watkins, just because the explosive potential is so large, and I think the potential of what a Foden can get you overweighs any safety, and it offsets any safety or comfort you have in going for Saka or Watkins. I really do think if you don't own Salah or Haaland, who are my best top 2 options, I think Foden is the best place to go. Now, my best captain for Game Week 8 is Haaland, which does put Salah in second place. Look, Haaland's kickoff stats indicate consistency not only on his game day, but also at his upcoming game time, and they also suggest that this could be a massive Haaland haul. He's projected great X minutes for the Wolves game, and even though he is away from home, Wolves is still one of his favorite Premier League fixtures, and matchup-wise it suits him. They've conceded a lot of chances centrally, and I don't rate Wolves centre-backs at all. Dawson, Bueno, and Totti, even if they play a back 3, I think that is a really, really weak back 3. And my biggest concern with the Haaland captain is service now. I know this guy, he can return without De Bruyne, but he does need service. He feeds off it, and he's been starving for 2 game weeks now. I do expect somebody to step up and, create more for Haaland. And if De Bruyne is ready for 20 minutes off the bench, that is a massive, massive positive. We should get a good idea of whether that's going to happen on Friday from Pep. So make sure you're following on all socials for a late update. But because of the previous explosive potential Haaland has shown through his kickoff stats, like I'm putting his ceiling at 16 points basically. So basically a 3 return ceiling. Even Mo with a brace is unlikely to, and that's like pushing Mo's ceiling very high. Even Mo with a brace can't beat that ceiling. And, just on Salah, it was really close between him and Haaland this week. It was really close. But speaking, just to a few Chelsea fans about how Maresca might set up, I don't think that Maresca is tactically naive. He's shown that he adapts his tactics due to game state, and I don't think he's going to leave Vega to suffer on his own. I do expect 1 return from Mo in that game, but that match overall, it could be quite cagey and low scoring. So that is why Mo takes the second spot. Honestly, I do think he's actually a great captain this game week, but Haaland's big ceiling, plus his consistency so far in the 2 PMs away from home, there's room for explosive full potential in that, and all the other stuff I mentioned previously means that Robot does take the top spot for the 4th time in 8 game weeks. And that is it for my best captain video. If you did enjoy this one, and if you did take some insight out of this one, then drop a like on the video. Let me know who you're captaining in the comments to help the video in the algorithm. And if you want a detailed breakdown on FPL premium swaps, then check out this banger right here. Good luck, and may your arrows be green. Peace.